All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon or midday, wherever you are from. So thank you so much for going and in the chat, kicking off the conversation for today. You are always so good about doing that. So let's see. We've got Augustine, Marvell, Terry, Deb from VA. We've got some people writing short stories, some poetry and fantasy in there as well, sci-fi. Very, very exciting. Catherine's working on spirituality, health, and psychology. So that's a lot. That's great. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you for sticking around for a couple minutes while we got set up on our end. So as you can see, I am joined here today with the fantastic Stephanie Chandler. Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us. If you are familiar with our webinar series at all, this is a return guest, a favorite of ours and yours, I think. So we are here today to hear about how to build a book marketing plan. There's no one better to tell it than Stephanie Chandler herself. So I'm going to do a quick little bio just to give you some of the cred to build Stephanie's street cred. I don't think she needs it, but I'll read through that. You can see that we have a chat feature going. Several of you have found it. Thank you for that. We also have the Q&A tab. So Stephanie, are you open for questions?
Always, absolutely.
Great. Awesome. So you can drop your questions in the chat or the Q&A. I'll be keeping an eye on those and we will run through them at the end. So one last thing to note, we will all have a recording of the webinar once it's over. So if you have to leave early or you joined late, the full recording will be available to you. So Stephanie Chandler is the author of several books, including the Nonfiction Book Publishing Plan and the Nonfiction Book Marketing Plan. She is also the CEO of the Nonfiction Authors Association, a vibrant educational community for writers, and the Nonfiction Writers Conference, which is just around the corner, is a twice-yearly event conducted entirely online since 2010. They were doing the online thing before it was cool. She's a frequent speaker at business events and on the radio and has been featured in Entrepreneur, Business Week, The Writer, Writer's Digest, and Wired Magazine. Give a warm welcome to Stephanie Chandler.
Hey, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. And thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. How's the audio? Are we sounding okay?
I am getting a little bit of feedback. Let us know in the chat if y'all are hearing that as well. I know it sometimes takes just a second for the chat to sync up. So let me know how Stephanie is sounding for y'all. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but okay, so yeah, a little bit of commentary in the chat that the audio is not coming through as clear as we would like. Tracy, thank you for your commentary there. So yeah, I think that there's some distortion going on, but we'll figure it out. So whatever.
I'm going to turn it off and on. I never have audio issues, so that's really strange.
Well, so now it sounds good. So maybe
let's turn it off and on the little button there. Is that better?
Oh, I think once you kind of continue talking, then that's okay. So if you kind of want to go with it and we'll see if we need to stop, then we can kind of figure out another option there or maybe pop some headphones on.
All right. Okay. Well, here we go. Let's go ahead and get rocking and rolling here. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm thrilled to talk to you about how to build your marketing plan. Don't worry, even though we're nonfiction, I've got content for you fiction writers as well. I wanted to first say how much we love Lulu. I recently had my workbook published with Lulu. I love the fact that we can do spiral binding. Our community of the nonfiction writers just uses Lulu for all kinds of things. So I just had to share how much we love Lulu, and I appreciate being here today. So I wanted to ask you to think about your goals for your book marketing. Do you want to sell a ton of books, and do you have a budget? So perhaps you're going to hire some help and you're going to invest in advertising. Maybe you have a limited budget, and that means that you're going to have to kind of DIY and maybe bootstrap and do the work.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think maybe if we turn your mic down a little bit, we're getting Joseph in the comments. Please reduce the volume of your mic. So maybe the volume might be.
Is that better?
No, I think that the feedback is still happening. Maybe if you have any headphones or anything like that, that maybe we could try a different option there.
Let me try. Here's another. Is that any better?
That sounds a little bit better. Yeah.
I've got a couple settings on here. I've never had this issue before.
I know, this is a fun day. This is a very exciting.
Those days. Any better? Any better? I could unplug this mic and use the camera mic and see if that makes sense.
Yeah, let's try that.
Camera mic, any better?
Yes, I think that is better. Yeah, if you want to try to work with that. I mean, I think that maybe the plugin was the issue. So let's try it.
Okay.
Okay.
Here we go again. Okay, guys. So, what are your goals? And so, part of book marketing, I like to think of it as a marathon. I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as writers to do all the marketing as fast as we can, as hard as we can. But I just want to encourage you to think of it as a long game. And I know it takes a lot of work. I know it's frustrating, but your goals can dictate your marketing. Maybe your goal is, just to impact readers and you don't really care how many books you sell. You just want to have some fun. That's cool too. So I just want to kind of help take some pressure off for some of you who may be feeling that it is overwhelming, but it can be done bit by bit, day by day. So I like to start with asking, what do you want to be known for? I think this is really important. It's a little bit easier for nonfiction authors to figure that out. For you as fiction authors, you kind of need to find your hook. What is the hook in your book, in your platform, that you can start to get known for with an audience? And then once you identify that audience, you want to understand what are their needs, their wants, and serve them with content, and then cultivate a community. This is how influential authors build careers. They get clear about a target audience, they serve their needs with content, and they cultivate a community. And becoming an influencer has a lot of value as a writer. It leads to book deals, it leads to corporate sponsorships, it obviously generates revenue, it may create speaking gigs for you. So there's a lot of benefits in building your platform on an ongoing basis. So I brought along some examples for you. This is Jenny Levine Fink. She has a community for people who are living a gluten-free lifestyle. She's been building this community for years. And last year her book came out. Well, because she's been cultivating a community and serving them with content, the book has done really, really well because she had an audience that's been following her for some time and eager to buy her book and support her. David Brin is a fiction writer. I don't know him, but he has done a wonderful job of cultivating an audience based on science and technology and his adventure books. And I think this is really interesting. He has a blog. He has a YouTube channel. He answers questions on Quora. So he's reaching people who are interested in the convergence of science and technology, and it's helping him find readers for his books. Melinda Emerson is a personal friend of mine. She's the small biz lady, built her following on Twitter by hosting Twitter chats. I mean, and that's paid off handsomely with the number of followers that she has, and also corporate sponsors, speaking opportunities. She makes a full-time living because she built an audience on Twitter. And in fact, Random House came to her and gave her a book deal because of that. I stumbled across the story of Chelsea Campbell. As some of you may be familiar with her. Her first book she self-published. It was a flop. It didn't sell well. She did a Kickstarter for book number 2, and that went well, and it led to a series. She ended up getting book deals, big advances, and has been optioned by Disney. How freaking cool is that? Somebody I've also known for 10 years. Maybe some of you have read this book. It just went completely viral. But How Elrod survived a head-on car crash with a drunk driver years ago and a traumatic brain injury. And he wrote this inspirational book about how to reach your goals by getting up early in the morning. But what he did over the years, long before his book came out, was he was a motivational speaker. So he would go to events, he would speak, he would get people excited. He built his email list. He created connections with others in the industry. So after doing this for so many years, when his book finally comes out, he has a massive audience that wants to buy it. And note that his audience isn't directly related to the content of his book. And that is something to think about too. Your book and your audience don't have to be 100% related, as long as you're reaching an audience that will be interested in the content of your book. Scott James is based out of San Francisco. I met him years ago. We both speak at the same writers' conferences frequently. And he built his audience based on writing edgy novels that are set in San Francisco. So what he did is he started a literary journal in San Francisco and cultivated a community of people who like to read and got himself known within that community. And then his novels are set in San Francisco. So it was a natural audience. And then it kind of spiders out from there. When you get one community talking about your books, they're going to tell others about it. It led to the New York Times inviting him to write a lifestyle column about San Francisco. He did that for years. Fundamental Changes. This is owned by Joseph Alexander. I reached out to invite him to be a podcast guest. I said, I heard you're doing 6 figures in book sales every year. We'd love to hear your story. And he said, great, I'd love to be a guest, but we're doing 7 figures in book sales every year. It started out with a guitar instruction manual, and he grew from there. He started bringing in other authors. He built a whole publishing business around the idea of music instruction. They do a lot of promotion with the YouTube videos. It's fascinating. Cindy Sample is based near me. I live near Sacramento. She is a local fiction author. Everybody knows Cindy Sample, and she writes these fun murder mysteries set in our area. But more importantly, she gets out and speaks. She speaks at every group in the area, chambers of commerce, trade associations, Rotary clubs, you name it. She has spoken there. She doesn't go in and talk about her book. She goes in and has topics like how to create a second act in your career, because she left her career, retired, and became a full-time writer. And so she does motivational talks. And because people enjoy her speaking engagements, she's able to sell books at the end. And then I'm sure many of you are familiar with Jennifer Weiner. I just wanted to show you an example of somebody who's been uber successful and probably doesn't even need to continue to keep the marketing wheels going. She writes chick lit, but she also writes a lot of articles in women's magazines. So it keeps her name in front of people with her target readership of women. So what do these people all have in common? They are clear about their audience, and they have a content strategy. They're sharing content with their audiences. So my recommendation to you is to pick at least one piece of foundational content, whether that's a blog, a podcast, or video. My feeling is it's important that to have one foundational piece of content that will bring people to your website. And so, let's say maybe it's a podcast. You create podcast episodes on your website, or you've got a YouTube channel, but you're also embedding those videos on your website. Or, hello, we're all writers. Blogging is kind of an easy option. So blogging could be your foundational content. But I really think it's important for authors, because we want to be driving traffic to our website. Creating new content gives us a reason to share on social media as well. So other strategies, there's social media, of course. Speaking, I think I've said for your speaker, sell books. This is an important option for you. You may be holding online events or participating in other people's online events. I've been doing them since, as Chelsea said, before they were cool, but I've certainly done more and more of them in the last 2 years. I love doing them. They're a ton of fun. I've done 4 this week. So it's a great way to reach people. And then, of course, now we're coming back into in-person events. That's really exciting. Are there events that your audience attends where you could be a speaker? And then other sites. What industry blogs or websites does your audience read or participate in? How can you reach them in other ways? So think through your website strategy. I see a lot of authors missing this opportunity, so that's why it's in here. But of course, you want to have a site where you're bringing people to that site. So of course, you have a homepage, you have an About the Book page, you have About You page. You should have a media page. If you're trying to get any kind of media coverage, create a media page. Look at other authors' pages for inspiration. I think a contact page that lists the city and state and country where you live is really important. I see this missed often. So you might have a contact page on your site, and that's fine, but please list city, state, country. This is really important for people wanting to reach out to you. Sponsors are often looking for people based, specifically on the East Coast or specifically on the West Coast, or speaker inviters are looking for people in a certain location. So please make sure people know where you're located. If you want to be a speaker, put a speaker page on your site and list some topics. That is step one in becoming a speaker, is creating a speaker page. It truly is that simple to start. And then a partners page. So this is a hidden page on your website that you use to help other people promote your books. So what goes on your partners page would be pre-written content. You want to make it easy for others to share details about your book. Short and long descriptions of your book that they can just copy and paste in the email. You want to have different versions of your bio, and then pre-write some social media posts that they can share, and also include graphics, social media graphics with your book cover. Maybe you create some memes, things that make it easy for your partners, your peers, people that you know, to help spread the word about your book. Also on your website, please, please, please be building an email list. I think this is the most important asset an author can have. If I had to choose between a social media account and an email list, I will take an email list all day long. An email list is an asset that you own. Social media is rented real estate. Twitter shut down our account last year for no reason. We had 70,000 followers that evaporated overnight, and we never got it back. We didn't violate policies. I've been hearing this over and over again from people. These things are happening, and we were never able to recover it. So please build your email list. It gives you a better way to communicate with your audience. Social media, I think, has been oversold a little bit. I think it's important. And if you're finding your flow there and building an audience, great. But not everyone loves it. So I feel like social media should enhance what you're doing. And of course, you should have those links on your website. And you should be tracking your website visits with Google Analytics. It is a free plugin that will show you, where is your website traffic coming from? Is it coming from social media? Is it coming from web searches? Is it coming from your YouTube channel? You want to know what's working so that you can do more of that. And certainly pro photos, you should have some professional photos on your site. So that if you get media interviews, they often will want to take pro photos from you rather than trying to get them taken. And then something that's a lead magnet that gets people excited to sign up for your email list. I think blogging is about the most important strategy an author can have if you want to bring in website traffic. It's a great way to build a relationship with your audience. Content, as I said before, brings people into your audience. It gives you something to share on social media. Your blog post can be written, or they can be those videos that you're creating, the podcast episodes. Maybe you export a transcript of your recording so that you get the benefit of multimedia on a blog page. That's important too. And you don't have to do all of this yourself. Invite people to contribute to your blog. Create interview forms. We have a written interview form for our community members where we feature their stories, and all they have to do is fill it out, tell us their story, and then that gets, a proofread, and it goes up as a blog post. And so it's a win for everybody because we're promoting them. It's interesting to read their stories, and they're able to just submit those in a written format. So there's lots of ways to produce content. By the way, I did share these slides with Chelsea, so you're welcome to get a copy after this event in case you're trying to furiously take notes. We will happily share these slides with you. And also think about other blogs and industry websites. Where can you contribute? Where can you write guest articles or share stories? Where can you be interviewed? Get on Google and search for similar authors in your genre. Where are they being interviewed? Where are they contributing content? What book giveaway sites are giving away books in your genre? How do you get involved with that? So yes, this stuff takes work and it takes some research, but these are the actions that start to pay off over time. Now, the good news is your audience may actually be bigger than you realize. So I call this our tribe of influence. These are the people that you know or you also want to know, but start with the people that you know. People that perhaps you went to school with, or maybe that you worked with even 10 or 20 years ago. These are people that know you, like you, and want to support you. So please don't be afraid to reach out to them. I'm a Silicon Valley refugee. I worked there 25 years ago. I have coworkers at tech companies all over the Silicon Valley. If I was writing books in that space, you can bet I would be reaching out to all of them to help me spread the word or get my book sold into the companies or invite me in to speak, things like that. So these are the things you want to be thinking about. It could be, neighbors, people that you shared, you were on a nonprofit board with. It could be so many different people. So I really recommend that you sit down and spend time on this exercise. Every time I release a book, I will literally dedicate an afternoon to looking through my emails, my social media content, thinking back to who do I know that could bring me in to speak or interview me on their podcast. At this point, I've got lots of friends in the industry, so I can reach out to them. But also, you want to be building your list of influencers that you want to connect with. So who also writes in your space? Who influences your audience? Can you connect with them? Will they review your book? So there's lots of ways to connect with them. And then what you want to do is figure out, what is your ask? Are you asking them to simply write a review on Amazon? Are you asking them to post an excerpt of your book on their blog? Are you asking them to simply buy the book or bring you in as a speaker or introduce you to someone influential? These are all things. So I like to create a spreadsheet that lists the people, and then my column for ask. What is it that I'm asking them to do? And then I craft personal emails, because it's so much better to craft a personal email, touch base, and check in and ask for support, rather than sending a mass email saying, hey friends, will you support me? I don't know about you, but I tend to delete those types of things. So with your tribe of influence, another way to grow that tribe is with beta readers and launch teams. Now, with my last book launch, I used beta readers for the first time, and it's one of my favorite things I ever did. So beta readers are people that you give early access to your manuscript, and they can help by either providing editorial feedback, or they become kind of your launch team. They're the ones that get the first reviews posted on Amazon and Goodreads. They can help build buzz on social media. Maybe they are emailing their lists or putting you on their podcast. So beta readers are your supporters. They're the people that are helping to cheer you on. And remember that partners page I mentioned? You're going to share that with them and make it easy for them to help you spread the word about your book. So these are the things they can help with. But what I personally loved about beta readers was the word of mouth. The buzz that they created when my book came out, because they felt like they were part of the process. I shared the manuscript with them a couple of months ahead of the release so that they had a chance to read it. And then I was sharing the steps all along. Here we are, we're in typesetting. Here we are, check out the cover. What do you think? Those types of things, letting them be part of the process. And then if you do want to use them for editorial feedback, it's good to be clear about what it is you want. So, are you looking for kind of general feedback? Are you wanting them to provide actual edits on your manuscript? So be really specific and clear about the feedback, especially depending on how many beta readers you have. It can potentially be a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So you want to be really clear and then give them a process for submitting that feedback. Why would people want to be beta readers for you? Well, first of all, it's an honor for a lot of readers to get early access to a book, especially if they're into your genre. For that reason alone, they may be really excited to be chosen to participate. It's an exclusive opportunity. You're not making this, available to the entire world. You're making it available to a select number of people. Some authors like to acknowledge their beta readers either in their website or on their book. You might offer maybe some bonus downloads, but I don't think it's necessary. I think most beta readers are happy to just be part of something special. If you do decide to use beta readers, I recommend that you create an application When I did this, I created a simple Google form. They're free to create. And I wanted to make sure that it was real people applying. I put out a call for beta readers through my social, through my email list. My goal was to get 100 people. I ended up getting 400, and I accepted all but one. And that choice is up to you. My feeling was the more the better. You may feel hesitant because maybe you don't want that many people to read the book in advance. But for me, my goal was all about getting the word out more than it was about book sales. So I think it's important to screen those people, put out a call. If you belong to any groups, you can maybe post your call for beta readers there. And then get just really clear about who it is you want to participate. Because let's say you write, romance novels, people who are reading sci-fi probably aren't your audience, right? So you want to find the right audience to be part of your beta reader group. And then you want to organize them in some way. For us, we created a Facebook group. Most joined, not all joined, but that was one way for us to stay in communication. And then we also had an email list, so I was able to email them updates. You can use tools like BookFunnel. There's also Beta Books is a tool that allows you to receive feedback on your work online. But you want to stay in constant communication, show your gratitude, let them know how much you appreciate them. And then here's another thing a lot of people worry about, giving early access to the manuscript. Is it going to get shared? Is it going to show up, elsewhere? I love this quote from Seth Godin, who spoke at our conference several years ago. He said, "Your problem isn't piracy, your problem is obscurity." So Seth's philosophy, if you read any of his marketing books, is the more eyeballs, the better. So maybe it does get shared, and maybe people pass the manuscript around to a few of their friends. My feeling is you've just gained some new readers. Now, it's different if it's getting pirated in other countries and available for free download sites. I mean, this is going to happen regardless. So for some authors, and my feeling is it's noise. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about it. If people are downloading books that way, they're not my people anyway. So my personal philosophy is I'd much rather get my book in the hands of as many people as possible. So make sure you're engaging your beta readers. You're letting them know when the launch is happening. You're giving them access to your partners page, making it easy for them to share, get them excited for you. And by the way, one of the things I loved about this experience of working with beta readers was how supported I felt. On launch day, when the book went live on Amazon, many of them bought the book. They didn't have to. They had early access to it, and I believe they bought it as a show of support. So a lot of their reviews showed as verified purchases because they bought the book. I never asked them to do that. You could ask your group. I never did, and they still bought the book. So that was really very touching. I felt really supported. It was a very rewarding experience. So obviously, Amazon is where most books are selling today. We have to pay attention to them. I am not a fan of these one-day, get your book on the bestseller category for a day and call it a bestseller. I just don't think there's a lot of value in this. This is a really interesting video to find on Amazon. This guy created a blank book and got it to #1 in a couple of categories on Amazon as a blank book. So there's so many ways to game this system, but there's really no long-term value in being the top of a category on Amazon for a day. So it is fun to rise to the top of a category, but here's the thing. The goal should be to stay in the top of one or more categories on Amazon for a long time. You want to be in the top 10 or 20 of at least one category on Amazon, because that is creating repeat sales for you. That is the goal with our marketing efforts, is to remain in the top of our categories. So here is a power tip. If you don't know this, please go do this today. Your book can be listed in up to 10 Amazon categories. When it's originally published, whether by your traditional publisher or by your print on demand or whoever you're publishing with, or with Lulu, you're able to recommend certain categories for the book. But then we all know what Amazon does with that is who knows how they come up with their categories. So here's the strategy. Go to Amazon and look for the books that are similar to yours and start to make note of what categories they're in. You're going to do this for each edition of your book, the print edition and the ebook edition, because they have separate categories. Come up with a list of 10 categories for each edition. Go to Author Central and send an email to them. It used to be that this was kind of a secret and you would just have to ask nicely, but now they actually have an option in the Contact Us in Author Central to request that your book get added to categories. And you simply say, here's the ISBN, please add my book to the following categories. Here's the ASIN for my ebook, please add it to the following categories. Now, I think Amazon ads are a potential boon for authors. I worked with Mark Paul in the last 2 years. He has zero platform. He's not a social media guy. He's a real estate investor. He wrote a memoir that reads like a novel, The Greatest Gambling Story Ever Told. It was about betting on a filly to win the Kentucky Derby. This was back in the 80s. And she ended up winning. And then he had to go collect his $1 million prize. He didn't realize he had bet against the Mexican drug cartel. So it's a fascinating, really fun read. And Mark decided to go all in on Amazon ads. In the first 6 months, he sold 20,000 books. Today, look at the categories. So he maintains top 5 in a number of categories on an ongoing basis because those ads started to build his audience, and then word of mouth starts to spread. Amazon reached out to him. They gave him some special promotion because his book was doing so well. So 2 years later, 35,000 copies sold, 1,800 reviews. I mean, the sales have been phenomenal using nothing but Amazon ads. Now, I know that that's hard to figure them out. Maybe you hire some help to do that. But basically, it comes down to figuring out the keywords that your audience would use to find your book. You can also set up keywords for competing author names and competing book titles. So if you compete with Nora Roberts, that would be one of your keywords, and then you'd list some of her most recent book titles. So when somebody searches for her name or her books, your ads are being served up to that audience as well. So do the research. This can really be worth the time. There are 2 types of Amazon ads. There's the pay-per-click where you set up your keywords, and then there's auto-targeted ads where you're basically giving Amazon a budget and letting them figure out the optimization for your ads. I suggest using both if you can afford it. It takes a while for these ads to really kick into gear, so don't just go a week and think it's not working and turn them off. You really need to give them 60 days to let all of Amazon's algorithms kick in. The goal really is to earn more than you're spending when you're advertising, right? So if you can set a budget of $5 or $10 a day, let's say you do $5 a day, $150 a month, but you earn back $300 in book sales, you're coming out ahead. And at any rate, you should earn back some of that in sales. If you're not earning that back in sales, something is wrong. Either your keywords are wrong, your cover's not appealing to the right audience, your sales copy isn't converting buyers. Maybe you need more reviews on your book. So these are some considerations. There's lots of information out there on how to optimize for Amazon. It used to be that these ads were only available to people published through KDP, but they have opened this up to everybody. So regardless of where your book is published, you can now access the Amazon advertising platform. All right, I know I'm hitting you guys with a lot of content, but let me just bring it home with some of my favorite marketing strategies. I think you should get review copies in the hands of as many people as possible. Beyond your beta readers, who should receive a copy of your book? Who are influencers in your space? Who are media professionals who write or do interviews on your topics? If you mention companies or people in your book, send them a copy. If you're trying to get into schools, for example, maybe you want your book used in a university course, send out review copies to professors. You can also create, I love a postcard campaign that says, would you like a review copy of this book? And then that creates a warm lead when somebody responds and says, sure, I'd love a review copy, like a media pro or something like that. So I really believe in Seth Godin's philosophy of get your book in the hands of as many people as possible, but be really specific in your targeting. don't send your book to people who aren't your target audience. People send me books all the time, and my personal to be read list is massive, and I don't read military history. I don't read fantasy. It's just out of my realm. So to send me books like that is a waste of my money and time for these authors. So be really clear that you're sending review copies to the people who will actually read the book and enjoy it and help spread the word. Book reviews are essential for your books, on Amazon in particular. So ask your beta readers to post review. Reach out to people who've reviewed similar books on Amazon. If you pull up any book on Amazon and look at the reviews, you can click on the book reviewer's name, and everyone has a public profile on Amazon. Some of those people publish a website or an email address because they want you to offer review copies. This is how a lot of readers get books, because they're willing to review them on Amazon and they love getting free review copies. So there's some research time involved in that, but that can pay off really well. If you're building an email list, you can be asking your followers to write reviews. Any online groups where you're participating and people are reading, we just need to get in the habit of ask. If you get an email from a reader and they say, hey, I just want to let you know I love the book, your response should be, thank you so much. Could you please take a minute to write a review on Amazon? Reviews, you cannot get enough reviews on Amazon. There's also paid review services, but I want to be really clear. You should not be going to Fiverr and buying reviews on Amazon. This totally violates policies. It is not a strategy you should ever do. It can get you banned from Amazon, but you can pay for editorial reviews with places like Kirkus and Publishers Weekly. You can do Goodreads giveaways. Midwest Book Review is very indie author friendly. They used to be free. I think they now charge $50 or something. There's NetGalley. There's one that's not on here called Book Review Targeter. It's software, and I think it's under $100. I could be wrong about that. It's called Book Review Targeter, and you can buy that software, and it will crawl Amazon for books in your genre and give you back a list of reviewers that had contact information available. So it can save you a ton of time in researching those Amazon reviewers. Now, I mentioned how much I love an email list. Please grow your list. And in order to do that, you have to give people incentive to join. It could be the first couple chapters of your book. It could be some bonus recordings or a mini course or recipes or coloring pages. Maybe you invite them to do a webinar session, something like this. You collect email addresses that way. And don't just stop at one incentive. We create multiple incentives. So we're frequently adding new reports. I do webinars once a month. So we're always looking for a way to build that email list. It's your best asset. I love this example of Dr. Saunder Dalton Smith. She wrote a book about the 7 types of rest we need to live a healthy life: creative rest, physical rest, emotional rest. And then she created a quiz, and she went on a publicity tour. If you've ever done publicity, it's a really hard way to sell books. It's very expensive to hire a PR firm. And oftentimes you're doing drive time radio and people are in their cars and they're going to forget about the book by the time they're out of their car. So what she did was say in her interviews, hey, if you want to learn about what the type of rest you need, take my free quiz at restquiz.com. She used a free WordPress plugin to create it. And that quiz has generated over 200,000 people have taken that quiz. That's a whole lot of email addresses. So quizzes are a great incentive if you can come up with something fun. I also love a podcast tour. This is an underutilized opportunity. Find topics that you can talk about on podcasts that reach your target audience. It is never about your book. It is about how you serve the audience. So maybe, you're reaching out to podcasts to talk about something motivational or even a personal cause. But if that audience reads your book, you're going to get your book promoted while you're being a guest. Podcast hosts tell me over and over again, they need guests. So figure out what your list of potential topics are. You want to give them multiple choices. Write a compelling pitch, and it can be really simple. Hey, I'm an author. I would love to be a guest. Here are some topics I can cover that will help your audience out. And then research shows through iTunes or Stitcher or any of the podcast apps, go to their websites. Most of them have podcast submission guidelines, and then send your pitches. So let's say you have a novel with a character with a dog as one of the main characters. So you might be a pet expert or just have a lot of experience because you volunteer with your local pet shelter, whatever it is. Your topics might be caring for your aging pets or training tips or safety. I mean, you can learn safety tips for dogs and then go give interviews about it and then promote your novel about your book that features a dog. So get creative here. You can do this and you can create lots of opportunities. Here's some equipment that you're going to need. I definitely don't recommend relying on your computer's microphone. You should get a separate microphone, either a headset. At the moment, I'm using my Logitech webcam with its audio. I usually use my Blue Yeti microphone that you see here. Never had issues with feedback like we did today. Normally, it's super reliable, but get the right equipment. And then I'm using a $30 desk light to put some lighting on me from Amazon. And you may consider hosting your own podcast. If this is a medium that appeals to you, I mean, podcasts are a growing opportunity for authors. Personally, I think it's more fun to go and build your audience by being a guest. I think that's a ton of fun, but I also do podcast interviews, and both are very beneficial for reaching your audience. And then finding and engaging with your tribe. Look to online groups. What Facebook groups does your audience belong to? What Yahoo groups? What niche websites do you belong to that have online forums where you can connect with your audience? Goodreads has reader groups and things like that. Even locally, you might go speak at meetup groups. Now that groups are coming back, you might go be a guest at meetup groups or trade association meetings. And then speaking. You cannot sell more books than with speaking. I am such a believer in this. Speaking for free or whether you're getting paid to speak, there are endless opportunities in your own backyard. There's the service group like Rotary and Kiwanis. There's trade associations. And now we have webinars. You can be a guest on trade association webinars. There's a specific writers group that I had wanted to speak for years. They have a conference every year. It's on the East Coast. They've never invited me. And this year I was able to say, hey, I'm available to do a webinar. And that got me in with them like that. So those are some ways that you can reach your target audience. And then with social media, I do feel like we've been oversold on this a little bit. Now, for some authors, they are able to make their social media really work. But I think that for most authors, it can feel like drudgery for a lot of authors, I should say. But I focus on social media as a way to build the email list, right? So promote your freebies and your webinars and your events, and then to drive website traffic. So you're sharing your blog posts or your podcast or things like that in order to bring your audience back. So it shouldn't all be about buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. Remember, it's always about serving your audience and providing value, regardless of what social media networks you're using. And so as far as content goes, maybe you create some memes, maybe you ask your audience questions. Maybe your focus is on just being funny. Comedians do really well on social media, and comic writers do well on social media. So maybe you create reels that are hilarious or offer quick tips or things like that. So lots of ways to produce valuable content for social. And then as we bring this all together, you want to just cultivate that community. So you're doing the work to connect with your audience, to bring them in, and then you want to maintain that connection. So how can you reward them? How can you send out free content periodically? Every once in a while, I'll throw out to my email list just a free download just to give them some value and help cultivate that loyalty that we have. Also, listen to your audience. What questions do they ask you? What feedback do they give you? This is valuable for creating new content or writing your next book. Knowing what your audience cares about really helps you serve them well. And if this doesn't sound like, if this does sound like a ton of work, because it is, I'm not going to lie to you, it is work. But you can hire help. If you have the budget, I think virtual assistants are one of the best things an author can have. These are administrative professionals that you can hire for as few as 5 hours a month, maybe $20 an hour. So for $100 to $200 a month, you can have somebody maybe researching podcasts and sending your pitches out, looking for speaking opportunities, and doing all the tasks that maybe you don't have time to do or you're procrastinating about. That will help you a lot. And if you're not going to put in all the effort, just understand it's going to slow your sales. And so that all gets back to your goals. What is it that you care about? Do you want to reach a ton of people? If you want to sell a ton of books, it is going to require some effort. Here's some resources for hiring an author's assistant. We maintain a list of assistants on our website. This link will forward you to our recommended resources page at nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. There's also the International Virtual Assistants Association at IVAA.org. Upwork.com has virtual assistants. Ask fellow authors for referrals. That's a great way to find a qualified assistant to help. And I know, as we've said, it's a ton of work, but try to have some fun with this. I think a lot of writers come into this going, I hate marketing. I don't want to do it. I just want to write. I totally get that. But maybe you could start having a little fun. Maybe when you start doing interviews or giving speaking engagements, you're going to find that you actually enjoy the process. So give it a chance, you might find. And then remember, it's bit by bit. You don't have to come out with all guns blazing and all your marketing happening at once. You can take time to build, lay 3 bricks down every day to build your strategies, and it will pay off over time. Chelsea mentioned at the beginning, we have our annual Nonfiction Writers Conference coming up next week. I'd love to see you there if you're interested. It's a 3-day event. We have agent pitches. We have online networking. We have Anna Quinlan is opening it. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer. Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way, also provided an interview for us. I created a code for you. If you'd like to join us, 10% you will save with the code webinar10. And if you register with us today, I'm going to send you a digital copy of the workbook I showed you. This is not publicly available. It will be released later this year, so you'll be one of the very first to get access. We created this workbook for a course they've been teaching, and I'm really proud of it. I'd love to send you a digital copy. So it's 10% with this code, and I would love to take your questions. Chelsea, let me figure out how to unshare my screen here.
And what a whirlwind, Stephanie. So much content, so much information as always, but what I love about the way they present it is it just seems approachable. And, listening to, your points and your advice here, it's, there are a few things that I would say are like low hanging fruit, right? So even just saying where you're from and like geographically trying to connect with people, I think that is a great way to start, because people love being able to say, yes, this person's from my hometown, and they want to make those connections. And so that's something that I wouldn't have thought of that can open up so many doors. And then one thing that I, again, want to reiterate, because we see this a lot with authors, is make it easy for people to like and share and follow and, be involved with what you're doing. So I think that those are such great tips. And of course, the email list, just so important. So valuable. Yes. So thank you for hitting all of those, and we'll run through some questions.
Great.
So one of the questions that I saw come through was just about your email list. And so I know this is very high level, but for someone who hasn't started that yet, do you have any tips for just getting it off the ground, or kind of laying those bricks, like you said, getting that started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, you need a tool, right? So it might be MailChimp, it might be Constant Contact, but you need a commercial tool that helps you collect email addresses and comply with all the rules about commercial email marketing, and that's a whole can of worms in itself. But get a tool. They're pretty easy to set up. And then, make your first incentive, maybe the first couple chapters of your book, and start with the people your family, your friends, your social media followers. Just start putting it out there. Download, the first 3 copies of my book, put it all over your website. We all start somewhere. I started back in 2000, I think it might have been 2004. I sent out my very first email newsletter to 8 people. 8. So you start somewhere. And let me just tell you, we're well into the thousands all these years later. So it's really worth that effort.
Yeah, I think, every time a creator or someone that I follow or like, one of the things they always say is, I wish I would have started earlier. So, I mean, I think that we all have this kind of thought that's like, where you want to get, you obviously want to have thousands of email subscribers or followers or fans, but it starts with 8, it starts with 5, it starts with 1, right? So, I mean, you have to, I love that. It's a very practical approach to it. So that was a great question to get us started.
Yeah.
So we had a question about targeting an audience. So what about targeting an audience from like Dune fans, for instance, or people who like a movie that's in the same genre as your book? What strategy or methods can I employ to approach fans directly or indirectly?
Well, yeah, so it's tricky when it's something really loose like that. I would say my first thought is to go to online groups where these people are participating. What other newsletters are they subscribing to? Can you connect with those people? Maybe contribute an article or things like that. Or can you go into Facebook groups? I think that's a huge underutilized opportunity, is to go into groups that already exist and connect with the administrator, become an active member of that group, and connect with the admin and say, hey, could I do a book giveaway for you? I'd love to give away 3 copies to members of your group. Well, guess what? That is a ton of exposure if we're talking about groups that reach thousands of people, right? So it's just figuring out where those people are spending their time. What are they subscribing to? Search for them on Instagram or whatever social media platforms you're following. You can DM people if you're so inclined. So there's lots of ways. And I think the thing about marketing is it's testing. And this is a frustrating part, because what works for one author may not work for the next, but we test and we figure out what works best for our unique circumstances.
Yes. And fortunately, there's so much data and information and things that people have done. So the opportunity to try and, try, fail, learn, and all of that, and see what other people have done. I mean, this is such a great time to be trying to do these things, because you can learn from so many people. So Christopher, thank you for that question. Next, we've got one. So this says, I'm working on my first book. It's fiction. And is it hard if you want to use a pen name and not use a personal photo? And there was another question about, if you don't want to have your photo all over your author website, how do you approach that? So we'll kind of roll those together, since there's sort of some.
All of those questions. Create a caricature. Go to Fiverr and have a caricature created. You can have a ton of fun with that. It doesn't even need to look anything like you. I've seen lots of authors do this. I think pen names are great. Even, best-selling authors have multiple pen names. So go for it. There's no reason you can't do that. And also, if you want to maintain your anonymity, that's an important reason to do that. But if it's all about anonymity truly, you need to be careful about showing your website registration, for example. So wherever your domain is registered, make sure you have privacy turned on so it's not showing your name and those types of things. So for true anonymity reasons, there's some things you'll want to do to protect yourself.
Oh, those are amazing tips. Yeah, I never even thought about such a wealth of information, Stephanie. All right, so we're coming to the end of the hour. I will do a last call for questions. If you have any that you want to get in, we've got a couple left. So David is saying, I liked your tip on searching through Amazon reviews of other books. How does that work? If you find their website or email, do you offer to send them an ebook or send them a voucher to buy the book on Amazon?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So I would usually recommend that you give them a choice. So would you like a physical book? Would you like a digital book, or a gift on Amazon? A gift card on Amazon is one way to do it that actually can help your Amazon ranking. So personally, I like to give them the choice.
Perfect. All right. So the last question that we'll have here, and this is a doozy to end it on, but Augustine is asking, do you have any advice on NFTs?
On NFTs in what regard? For digital sales and things like that, or?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to make an assumption here, but I'm thinking, Augustine, and let us know in the chat, but maybe turning your book into an NFT, using that, maybe something like that. Just any feedback. Well, he says NFTs for authors, or Augustine says any. So wherever you want to go with that, take it away.
I don't even know where to go with that, Augustine. I'm sorry. That's totally beyond where I'm going with that stuff right now.
Yes, I think, I mean, it's something that we've talked about, Lulu, is how to approach that, blockchain and NFTs and things like that. And like we said earlier, I mean, things that work for one author, it's not going to work for another. So if your audience is very tech savvy and, into that trend, and your audience research is leading you to that point of interest, then, go for it. But
that's a good point, Chelsea, because that certainly is not going to be for every audience. But yeah, if you're traveling in that space of blockchain or cryptocurrency or anything like that, then maybe it's worth experimenting. But I haven't heard a lot of proven results with that to this point.
Right. Yes, I know. I saw they tried to sell Jack Dorsey, so the founder of Twitter, his tweet. They bought it for millions of dollars, tried to sell it as an NFT. I think the highest bid was like $280. So just, understand the risk and reward. And, like we mentioned, just know your audience and know if that's something that they would be receptive to.
Yeah.
And so, so I see y'all asking for, the recorded version. Everyone who registered will get a recording, and I will send out the slides as well. If you send me an email, I'm happy to do that. I see a lot of you have already sent in those requests. So thank you so much. And I think that we will be getting out of here. I'll do one more check. Danita is asking, can you ask my question, how to get signature working? So I'm not exactly sure how do you work the signature page for a blogger? I'm not exactly sure what that question is in regards to a signature working. I don't know about that, but you can send me an email and I'll be happy to connect with Stephanie and see if we can answer that question. If you have more information there, let's see. I think that we're good. I think we ran through all the questions. And Stephanie, thank you again for just, battling through. I know that you had a lot going on this morning, so thank you for joining us. That's amazing. Thank you all for tuning in. We so appreciate it. And we will sign off here. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay tuned for the next one that we do on Webinar Wednesday for Lulu. Tune in to the NFAA. So where is the website they can find you, Stephanie, or any links to find you?
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. Nonfictionwritersconference.com and nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. And thank you so much for having me. It's always fun. I'm sorry for all the weird techie issues we had today, but we were able.
Keeps it exciting. That keeps it exciting. So I love this. Great. Yeah.
To make sure we're on top of things.
Yeah, that's where that virtual assistant comes in, a real world example of how that would be helpful. So
definitely.
Thank you everybody for rolling with us through this. Stephanie, have a wonderful day. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye everybody.
Bye.